Hey yo wackadoodles, it's been a minute since I last saw ya, but 2 overdoses and the car crash later and I'm good to go. But what do we cover? What needs the Jammo treatment today? Rebel Moon Part 2? Yeah, no thanks, I couldn't even get through Part 1. I'd rather go for overdose number 3 with pure lethality this time than waste my consciousness on that Zack Snyder steamer. But here's an idea, I just got my grubby little meat hooks on Dune Part 2. And at first I thought maybe I'd review both at the same time, but then the manic side of my manic depression pressed the gas pedal and I decided, hey, you know what would be fun, for me if nobody else, is do a Part 1 review first, completely ignorant of how this cinematic saga concludes. Why do this, you may ask? Well, we are nothing if not timely on this channel, almost never covering things as they come out, and I guess some part of me wants to record my thoughts for some stupid kind of posterity, untinged by my opinion of the sequel. And you gotta do what interests you in this wacky life. So here we go, a peer review. Pure and uncut. No baby laxative in this fine powder, am I right? Also, before we get started, it is worth noting that I did a full podcast episode on this when it came out. I have no memory of what I said in the episode, but you're free to check it out if you like. Link in the description. I'm not gonna bother with any kind of plot summary here because it's Dune. If you're not aware of Dune yet, then why the hell are you watching this tiny nothing channel talk about it? Although hello, welcome, you're looking fine today, press subscribe. And also because Jesus bloody tampon Christ, it's so dense that we'd be here all day, and there's only so many wacky images I can shove into a single video. So where do we start? My inaugural thoughts turn as they often do to the director. As a big ol' honkin' movie nerd, it's always been strange to me that people are unaware of the director of a film. It's like not knowing who wrote the song you like or whose book you're reading. And Denis Villeneuve has been one of my favorite filmmakers ever since I saw Prisoners back in 2013. It was clear to me he was something special, and in my not so humble opinion, this man has constructed nothing but excellence ever since. Enemy, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner 2049. These are all movies I love and will probably talk about someday on the channel. Especially Enemy, that movie is insane. So, when Denis Frenchy Pants was contracted to make Dune, I had no reservations as to how excellent it would be. The question is, was that expectation fulfilled? Dune is a massive project and it has stymied great directors before. Well, let's cut through the suspense. The answer is yes, it's great. Mostly. It's a fantastic half of a movie, and that's one of 2 problems. I'll get to these a bit later. First, let's celebrate what works. Films are often carried by a central pillar, the strongest element upon which everything else can rest if need be. A great performance can elevate a substandard movie, or on the flip side, stylish direction can overcome a poor performance. For Dune Part 1, the linchpin of the entire production is the production itself. The world design, the sounds and visuals, the stunning realization of Frank Herbert's vision, those fucking cool little mosquito ships. This film is an enormity. Even as a diehard fan and seeker of fantasy and science fiction, it is exceedingly rare to be this immersed in a production. Normally I would attribute this to simply the direction, but Dune goes a few steps further, and I want to credit anyone who had a hand in bringing this world to life. From the set designers and prop makers to the effects artists, on down the line to the patient heroes who spent 6 hours a day applying intricate fat guy prosthetics to the great Stellan Skarsgard. And if you want to dive into a really cool rabbit hole after this, I highly recommend watching Thomas Flight's videos about the sound design of Dune. Thomas is a brilliant guy and his videos go way deeper than my ADHD brain has the capacity for, so just go check him out in general. But yeah man, world design, I'm not sure I've seen any better. It's probably the most transportive movie making I've seen since Lord of the Rings. That might be a hyperbolic half-truth if I really examine it, but whatever. That's what I feel at this moment, and like Kerouac before me, I just go with the rhythm of my thoughts. The production is a 10 out of 10. The problems start to come in when we look at the narrative space. As I said earlier, this really does feel like half a movie. You might be saying at this point, yeah Jammo, you big dingus, that's why we have part 2. idiot. They're supposed to be watched together. And while there is a fair point lodged somewhere in this defensive dur-brained internet comment counter-argument, I would counter-argue by asserting that a single film in a series can still be narratively satisfying taken on its own. This is particularly important when it's the first film of a series. Once again, I point to Lord of the Rings as a stellar example. We're given what feels like a complete arc, both for the storyline and for the major characters, leading nicely into the next phase of storytelling while still being satisfying on its own merits. Or to state this more succinctly, it feels like a complete movie. Star Wars: A New Hope is another great example, or even Harry Potter. You have the trajectory of a school year. It feels like an arc. Dune Part 1, however, feels incomplete in comparison. Not only does it feel like half a story without a narrative payoff, but it's suspiciously lacking in character arcs as well. Now, before I go further with my criticism, I want to reiterate that I do think this movie is great, and these quote-unquote problems I speak of can be easily surmounted for you depending on your expectations of what a movie should be. Like, you could just think about this as one episode of a 2-episode series, right? And that changes things. Or you could just think about it as a companion piece to the books where you know these characters. Go ahead, buddy, you do you. I just find it interesting to examine in my own way, you know? So the other narrative problem woven into the incomplete plot structure is a surprising lack of characterization. I'm fascinated by the surface level of these characters, but even over the course of a 2.5-hour movie, I feel like I barely know them. This is not a critique of the actors or the writing, it's just to do with the nature of the density of Dune, and how swiftly you have to sift through the material in order to make it cinematically viable. Even in telling half a movie's worth of story, it still feels like it moves way too quickly, and I would have loved to linger in this world for a longer time. I know that Danny Vaudeville has dashed the idea of a director's cut. It goes against his ethos as a filmmaker for some reason, but I would dearly love to see a Lord of the Rings style extended edition. Count my criticisms here as coming from a place of love, because it's all about me wanting more. Give me more character, give me more world, let me spend more time with these people. I don't know why I'm saying more like this, just roll with it. But it feels like they land on Arrakis and then barely have time to take a dump before the Harkonnens arrive. However, at the end of it all, it's a testament to how good this production is that these problems aren't actually very problematic. Like I said, it's just interesting to me. I like to pick apart films in my own way, and I wanted to record my thoughts before I watched the second one. I know that they've announced Dune Messiah, which would make this a trilogy, but I'm hoping the arc of the second movie completes the promise of the first. If Dune Part 1 is a good first half of a movie, without the narrative fulfillment you might expect, then all I really need from Part 2 is to finish that movie in a satisfactory way. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go find out. Thanks for watching. Help me fulfill my own story arc by pressing the subscribe button so I can someday make beer money from these videos. And stick around for Part 2, coming soon to a browser page near you. And forget not the words of Frank Herbert, fear is the mind killer, but a Jammo a day keeps the doctor away. Peace out, ya goons.